Welcome back. You are listening to the Mari Mukonda Show on Salam Media. It is 7 minutes after 12. You are listening to the Mari Mukonda Show, and I am your host, Mari Mukonda. So, the two, EQ versus IQ, are sometimes pitted against each other as a way of determining which one has a more value in the workplace or in life in general. However, a balance between both intelligences is better than excelling at just one. Ability to acting upon knowledge and handling emotions is key in making win-win decisions. To chat a little bit more about this is Saeed Abduh Malizani, who has an associate degree in psychology, certified psychotherapist, and emotional intelligence and people skills specialist. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, shukran, and yourself.
Alhamdulillah.
Shukran for joining us once again. So, Sheikh, quickly tell us what is EQ and what is IQ.
Generally, if we have to define IQ, it is, in simple terms, it is the intelligence that we think of. When we think of people like Albert Einstein in the sciences, and people like William Shakespeare in the arts or in literature, general intelligence. We generally think that people who are smart are those people who have this, what is called the IQ, the intelligence that we understand. Kids who are smart in school, people who are smart at work, we will tend to say that those people have IQ test. And sometimes when we go to psychological, we even use the IQ test to actually measure who's got higher IQ and who has low IQ. So that's basically is what we call IQ, the general intelligence as we know it. And EQ is something different. Emotional intelligence is something that came a little bit later. Because it's not as scientific as IQ is in terms of being measured. But you find something interesting that Islamically the EQ has always been existing within us. We had these tools in the Quran, in the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Books actually have been written as we speak on the emotional intelligence of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And you'll actually be shocked that we have verses of the Quran and incidences in the Seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where he was demonstrating the EQ and the EQ and why it is more important than having IQ.
Mm-hmm. And what are the qualities of people who have? In fact, I'm not even sure. Is there such a thing as having a high EQ? Because I know about a high IQ and a low IQ. What about EQ? Is it also measured the same? Can one have a high or low EQ? Let's chat about that before we get into the qualities.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit to the IQ part of it, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to issues of IQ, and it's quite unfair because we tend to judge IQ by, say, people who know mathematics more and people who know sciences more, and the rest of the people are thrown away. Someone has said something to the effect, I think it was Albert Einstein himself, saying that we can't measure the ability of intelligence by climbing of a tree. Then in that case, the fish look like it is stupid. It doesn't know anything. But we're going to define that, inshallah, if we still have time, as exactly what is intelligence. But coming back to your question of, is there any way that we can measure EQ and say is this person has high EQ? There is a way to see if a person has a high EQ. If I have to talk from the Islamic point of view, it is a way of, when you see someone, how they can manage their emotions. Even non-Muslims can understand this. A person's understanding their own emotions, right, and how they can manage and regulate those emotions, and how they can relate with other people's emotions, and how they can connect with other people when people want them to invest in them emotionally. So that day you can see a person who invests in other people emotionally more has a higher IQ. And the example that I gave of the Prophet ﷺ himself and the other righteous predecessors and the people who used to be around him, you'll find that these people had the highest IQ imaginable, the Prophet himself. So you're looking at qualities like when you look at the Prophet, people abusing him, and this person still in that storm, he can still manage to, to hold himself and control himself. And he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leave these people. They do not know. They do not know what they are doing. So that the ability to be able to control your own emotions and understand that this person's emotion or EQ is low. So I'll leave him for now. I'll talk to him later. Or I don't talk to him now. I'll talk to him another time. All those are some of the signs of high EQ.
And how can we balance the two, having IQ and EQ at the same level? But I know it can't be easy, especially because not many of us are good at the maths and the sciences.
Yeah, it needs to be balanced. If we talk about the workplace, if we're talking about society, we're talking life in general, we're talking marriages, any type of relationship. I think if there is, we can call it balance as such, because you find that there's people who have high IQ, very amazingly high IQ, but they have low EQ. And because they have low EQ, they are not good with people. They are not good team members. They are not good leaders because they have just low EQ. They just don't care about people. They don't understand. They don't care about other people's emotions. They don't care if you come to work and you broke in on that particular day. They just want the work done, or they just want you to do your part. So it just tells you, do your part so I can do my part, so we can carry on, because this EQ is very low. So EQ to me is more important than IQ is, although we need to have a reasonable amount of IQ to put in there and the balances with the EQ.
All right. Can emotional intelligence be taught, or is it something that can just be improved?
Emotional intelligence, I think it can be taught, yes, and it can be improved, but in a sense that a person has the abilities within him, like how we coach people. Like a person has the abilities within him. He doesn't know he's got these tools, so we're just helping him to motivate him to unlock the tools that he already has. Like the example I gave, that you find that as Muslims we already have these tools, but 99% of the Muslims I've met, they don't understand where EQ fits with Islam. But then if you motivate people and tell them where in the Quran it is, where in the history it is, which historical Muslim figures had this EQ and where they used it, then a person starts thinking, and maybe perhaps his EQ gets unlocked. But it can be taught. But unfortunately, there's certain people who don't have a growth mindset, right? They will not be able to benefit much from being taught EQ. But then there's people you can see that this person has the ability to, is a soft-natured person because of this personality type that he has. If he learns EQ and the tools of EQ, he can actually improve and become a better person.
Well, sometimes you find a situation whereby a person had a high EQ level, but due to some events or whatever took place, then it has led them to have a low EQ level. So can that sort of be revived? Can they get their EQ back after such incidences?
It can. I can just say that is just a little bit of a failure on a person's part. It happens to everybody. It happened to the greatest of people, that sometimes the event is so overwhelming, you don't know what to do. You've lost someone that you love, and at that moment you snap. Means probably a lot of other things have been happening. There was a string of events happening around you, and this was just the straw that will break the camel's back. But it doesn't mean that this person EQ went down. It probably means that this person's EQ at that particular moment, he couldn't manage to deal with the situation because it was too heavy for him. But then if a person is taught or is motivated, or he goes for counseling or therapy or coaching, whatever the case is, then he can always revive his EQ and become that person, or become even better. Some people actually become better after calamities.
Well, that is true because, like your book mentions, after hardships comes ease. So,
Yes.
yeah, EQ can be taught and we can become better people. Shukran and Jazakallah for your time for joining us once again, Sheikh. If you, please share your contact details with our viewers and listeners if anyone would like to get a copy of your book.
Yeah, they can contact me on Facebook. Saeed Malizani is the name, or you can WhatsApp me, call me, text me on 061-420-4712, 061-420-4712. Jazakumullah khairan for having me.
Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum. Have a wonderful day.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Sheikh Saeed Abduh Malizani, who has an associate degree in psychology, certified psychotherapist, and emotional intelligence and people skills specialist, taking us through EQ and IQ and balancing the two. Do stay with us. We will be right back after the break.